Maddie Sloane and welcome to another episode of Snap Happy, the photography show. We're on the east coast of Fraser Island at Eurong Beach Resort. It has a spectacular outlook across 75 Mile Beach, and today Darran Leal is going to take us to some of his favourite spots. But first, I'd like to introduce you to Aubrey Daquinag. She loves to travel the world and also loves to share her adventures through her travel blog aptly named The Love Assembly. It's the combination of her street smarts, adventurous spirit and photographic skill that brings it all together.
The Love Assembly is a travel and lifestyle blog that I started at the end of 2012. And it's basically a destination where I combined my love for photography and exploration. It started as an outlet for me to interview creative individuals that basically started something that they loved and then created it into their career, hence the name. But then it's now evolved into only something that I can really explain for it to be a roaming creative studio where I produce content and create content for travel and lifestyle brands like Cathay Pacific, Tourism Australia, Tourism Japan, and Condé Nast Traveller, to name a few.
And you've travelled to some beautiful destinations. Tell us a standout.
Oh, that's always a hard question. I think that the places that stand out to me the most to photograph and explore have always been places that are so different to the way I live and how I grew up. And so the top three that I can mention are Morocco, just because I think it's beautiful but very challenging at the same time to really get those beautiful captures. And with the people that are kind of sensitive in the destination, it kind of gives you that edge to really push you out of your comfort zone. Another one has been Peru, just because it was my first destination that was really my solo travel trip. And I went on a hike that was not the standard Machu Picchu photography, scenario and everything. It was my hike to Rainbow Mountain, which led me to the top of this beautiful mountain, and it was just pink and beautiful and really feminine and girly. And then I like the exotic locations as well, so Mexico and Boracay in the Philippines, in Palawan Island, because who doesn't love island life?
Who doesn't love the Philippines?
Yeah.
And you've just brought out a book, so tell us about that.
My new book is called Wonderlove, and it's basically a perfect mix of style, substance, and travel adventures to inspire your own, because I talk about the wonderful world that I've built of the Love Assembly that was pretty much from scratch. So building my travel photography skills and then traveling solo to learn a lot of lessons. I talk about a lot of different things in there, from travel packing to travel life lessons on the road that I've learned by traveling solo, tips on how to, upgrade your photography skills, and I give you destination guides as well for 6 different places around the world.
You're using the Lumix gear at the moment. What camera are you using?
So I'm using the Lumix G9 camera, and I think it's perfect because it's got features in it that for someone like me that has moved from a DSLR to now something that's a micro four thirds camera, it gives me the ability to be able to shoot and not be weighed down by the gear that I'm using.
And before we go, where to next?
Next is moving to London, and I'm going to experience a European summer actually for the first time.
Amazing.
So I'll be able to travel around Europe, much more accessibility to those destinations rather than coming from Australia.
Looking forward to it.
Yes.
We asked Aubrey to share with us some of her tips for travel photography.
When I travel solo, I like to often include myself in my photographs. So I'm at Circular Quay at the moment, and I'm going to put this into practice. I've got the Sydney Harbour Bridge behind me, and although I've seen a lot of people taking photos, selfies actually, with their iPhone, I'm going to talk you through the process into how I take travel photographs with myself in the actual photo. And it's a 3-step process. So you've got your travel tripod, set that up and survey the area. Hook up your camera onto your tripod once you've got the shots that you have envisioned in your head. And then I like to set it up through my iPhone where I can control it through the remote operation. So instead of ending up with a cheesy selfie, we've been able to put some thought into it, set up a shot and tell a story. When you're traveling, there's going to be situations where you don't have your tripod, or the situation isn't really ideal to set it up. Don't be afraid to ask a stranger. To find the perfect solution, look for someone that has a camera set up already. That way, chances are they already know what they're doing. I hope you enjoyed my travel tips. Why don't you give it a go on your next adventure?
We're here at Yurong Beach Resort, situated on the eastern coast of Fraser Island, right on 75 Mile Beach.
The landscapes on Fraser Island has been really diverse. The mangrove swamps, the rainforest, and you've got that beautiful, glorious 100-kilometre beach.
It's the perfect spot for going either north or south up the coast.
There's beautiful bird life here, amazing wildlife. It's lovely here.
Yeah, really great location on Fraser.
A group of keen photography enthusiasts embark on a week-long creative photo workshop on Fraser Island, hosted by Darran Leal of World Photo Adventures.
So who normally isn't up at this time of the morning? Look what you miss out on, guys. Isn't it beautiful? We got up crack of dawn. We're sort of 5:15 this morning. Beautiful, beautiful conditions. And we're on the east coast beach of Fraser Island. Really, really pretty spot to shoot. And we're looking at special opportunities. We've got a full moon, but also on the beach we've found a special shell, a nautilus. So these do wash up on the beach. I wouldn't say regularly, but we've found quite a few on the beach. Very, very cool shell to photograph. I'm going to go aperture priority, f8, f11. You can shoot whatever aperture you like, to be honest, as long as you can hold the shutter speed. I sometimes shoot this at a very low ISO, and I'll wait till you get that wave that just washes on it a little bit. And so what happens then is you end up with a sharp shell, but this bit of water action happening. Very cool shot. Photography can be about just recording historical facts or family images, that sort of thing. But for other photographers that want to go an extra step, it's about challenges. And here it's a really great spot to challenge yourself. And we've got photographers out in a group now that are doing little macro work, they're doing slow shutter speed work. I'm letting them have a bit of fun.
The only way to get around the island is by four-wheel drive.
We're heading this afternoon north up towards the Mahino wreck, and we're looking at birds on the beach. We're using the vehicles as a hide. So we're finding oyster catchers, plovers, lapwings, crested terns, quite a few different species. And the goal is to use the vehicle to get as close to the birds as possible without upsetting the birds and get really cool photographs. I'm using a long telephoto lens, a 400mm. Simple technique again, aperture priority, 5/6, 400 ISO, continuous focusing so that I can track the bird. And we're looking at getting reasonably tight photographs, but not necessarily too tight, because we like to leave a little bit of space for some creative freedom.
In 1935, a luxury passenger ship named the Mahino came aground on Fraser Island, and its wreck remains as one of the island's major landmarks.
I've probably been here over 100 times. Every time is different. And right now our group's out there and they're having a ball photographing rust, holes, all sorts of opportunities. I got to say, I've never seen it like this before. Normally you can't walk to the seaside of the wreck. This time we can walk right around the whole wreck. So I've got my camera out, I've got my super wide angle lens on, and I'm having some fun myself. Photographic opportunities vary a lot. There's under the ship at the moment, there's all sorts of lines and shadows occurring. The rust itself with old portholes. So there's all these shapes, lines, shadows, all of them add up as a photographer to be quite creative. We're heading back from the Mahino wreck, and on the beach there's a dingo. Really, really cool experience.
They're a wild animal, so the idea is you don't interact with them in any way. So you make sure you don't try and pat them, you don't try and feed them, you don't try and round them up. They're wonderful creatures, and when we see them, what we do is we get together as a group and stay together as a group. Generally speaking, they're okay, but we're going to make sure that we are the dominant animal. So if they start to look a bit aggressive, stand up, slowly walk away.
So we kept the group a bit away, used our long telephoto lenses, so 400 400mm aperture priority, but we had to shoot 1600, 3200 ISO, got some fantastic photographs to finish the day.
We were shooting from the car, of course, so I stepped out to see where he'd got to, realised he was right behind us, and it was all go, to be honest. Straight out, we've got to get out of there. We don't want to be hanging around, don't want to be on foot around a dingo. Safety first always. Get down another 50 metres down the beach and take our shots from there. I mean, we've got these long lenses for a reason. You can get far away and you'll still be able to get nice and tight and have a sense of the animal's behaviour too. If he looks unhappy being around you, there's always going to be another opportunity. It's not worth risking your life for it.
The challenge to always reproduce different images, to capture the emotion of the motorsport, to capture the event rather than just a car on a track. My photography, I suppose over 30 years ago, I used to race motocross. I was injured one season and I've always been into photography, so I picked up a camera and started photographing. Yeah, just went from there. So magazines started using my work. This is in the days of film. This is a long, long time ago. The challenge for me is to continually change the way I do photos and reinvent myself all the time. Plus, every time I go back, I have new toys. I have new things to play with. I have new cameras. I have new lenses. I have new technology that enables me to get pictures I couldn't get before. You know, when I was shooting film, I was shooting 100 ISO or 400 ISO, and that was big. That was high ISO. Now, 1,000 ISO, 2,000. The technology convinced me that it's okay to do that. Some garage stuff at 6,400 ISO. I could never have done that, even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That's what keeps me passionate about my photography. So my kit really consists of the 2 bodies and probably about 6 or 7 lenses. I tried the 10-24 and it was superb. 16-55, that's brilliant. 50-140 and the 100-400. So I have the 4 zooms. I also have the primes. I love the 23, 1.4, the 16, 1.4, 56, 1.2, and the 90mm f2. With the X-H1, for me, it's the in-body image stabilizer. Image stabilizer on these lenses, when I was testing the 100-400 in the pits, 50th of a second, handheld, 1250 ISO, and the images were pin sharp. Some of these, like the 90mm, doesn't have image stabilizer. 56 doesn't have it. So to put it on the X-H1 with image stabilizer in the body, it turns all my lenses into image stabilized lens. You guys to have film simulations in your cameras, it's fantastic because I can feel like I'm still shooting film. So Velvia is one of my favorites. Shot JPEG, Velvia simulation, and I also just tweaked the white balance to shade, so it actually intensified the colour. The quality of the X-Trans sensor and the film simulation combination, and the glass. I mean, it's all about the glass, really. That was the 100-400. It's one of my favourite lenses for motorsport. So that's about, what was that, 30th of a second? I was using the 56mm. I never really used it in this sort of setting before because it wasn't image stabilised and it was a bit of a challenge. But the image stabiliser worked very, very well. Again, Velvia simulation, so it brought out all the colours of the trees and the lake and the reflection, so all very good. This is why I love motorsport. This is Bruno Senna winning the championship. I just love the interaction between the driver and his crew. They won the championship on the last round. They overtook the previous leader of the championship. So for me, that's a great moment in motorsport, and the main reason why I do enjoy what I do. You know, for me, if it just becomes a job, then it's time to stop. This is not a job for me. This is a passion. This is something that I've been doing for a long time. Things I'm doing now with this technology enables me to capture images that I could never capture before. So you know, that's the big thing for me. As the technology changes, I'm able to create new images, and that fuels my passion.
Hey, I'm Aubrey. I'm a travel photographer and travel blogger, and this is what's in my kit. Because I often travel solo, I like to keep my kit light and in style. I've got this backpack here that enables me to fit my Panasonic Lumix G9 camera. I like it because it's weather resistant, super sturdy, and it's got an electronic viewfinder as well as a flip screen. For my lenses, I've got the 8-18 wide angle lens. It's super wide, and because most of my photography is around landscapes and the environment that I'm in rather than just all about myself, I like to keep it ultra wide, and this is perfect for that. Another lens that I use is also a Leica lens. It's the camera kit lens, and it's the 12-60mm lens f2.8. I often carry products as well when I'm on the road, and so when I'm shooting people and products, this is the lens that I like to use. I also use a tripod, and I've got the Manfrotto travel tripod here that is super light, but it enables me to take those self-portraits that I use. I also have the iPhone 7 Plus, which allows me to take self-portraits by connecting it to the camera and then controlling the camera with the remote operation. I'm Aubrey, and that's what's in my kit.
Hi, I'm Peter Eastway. We're here at Taronga Zoo, Sydney, and my job is to teach you post-production. But before we get into that fun stuff, we've got to go and take a few photographs, so let's go. We're in front of the chimp cage, and it's one of my favourites. The antics are fantastic, lots to photograph. We've got a little bit of a challenging situation in that the weather is so fantastic, but it's challenging for us as photographers. One of the techniques I use when shooting action is to shoot a little bit wider. So while I've got a telephoto lens and I can zoom in close, the action can move in and out of the frame really quickly. So what I do is I shoot wider, capture the action, and then I can crop the image later on in post-production. Back in the studio is probably the best time to sit back and reconsider your photographs. When you're out in the field, everything's happening, it can be exciting. Take the shot. Just take the shot and then worry about it later on. And then later on, in Lightroom, where we are at the moment, let's think about composition, framing and cropping. Because what we want our photograph to do is talk to our readers. We want to communicate what we think is important in that photograph. With the photograph of the mother chimpanzee, what's important to me is her with her bub. I'm not really so interested in the background, so when we come to cropping it, let's remove the unwanted background and the foreground. Come up into my crop tool and Lightroom, if we're using Lightroom, puts a border around it. There's no requirement to keep the same shape that the camera manufacturer has provided. Let's turn this into a vertical. And by turning it into a vertical, we're actually concentrating our viewers' attention on what's important to us. We're also moving the focus of attention up into the top left-hand corner using the rule of thirds, and that can be a benefit in itself. Press done, and then I think you'll agree that we've got a much stronger image simply by cropping it. This is a great example of not being able to get as close to our subject as we'd like to. And we've got lots of things in the background that are competing for attention. We've got the little waterfall on the right and we've got the bright rocks on the left. And of course the photograph is a little bit underexposed in terms of our subject. So we can quickly fix that. We can come along and increase our exposure a little bit and importantly grab the shadows and lighten them up. And you'll see that we can put lots of detail, but even that, it's still very busy. Let's come down to our crop tool and let's be bold. Let's get rid of that waterfall up in the top right and come in nice and tight, and we're going to get rid of those rocks on the left, and that solves a lot of exposure problems. We might even turn it into an almost square image, and that's much better, much stronger, much more engaging for our viewers as well. Sometimes we're cropping for artistic effect. On other occasions, what we're trying to do is hide some things so that we give a different impression. For example, our photograph of the koala, we can see on the right here that we've got a big metal structure. It's one of the bars holding up the cage, and that sort of gives the game away. So what I'm going to use is the crop tool to get rid of that. So we come into crop, we just literally drag it over to the right, and we're hiding that. And so now it looks more like the koala is out in the wilds. The photo, of course, isn't quite balanced. We're now going to come and just drag over it on the left, just bring that in so that we've got a better balanced image and one that's self-contained. We've got the tree growing out of the koala's head in the background, but we can look at that in another way at another time. But I think you'll agree that that's a stronger version of the photograph. I think cropping is one of the easiest and one of the most powerful techniques you can use in post-production. It's very simple. However, cropping requires you to get the camera angle right in the first place. Take for example the giraffe photographs I've taken here. The giraffe on the left has got a very busy background. It doesn't matter how I crop the image, it's always going to have a busy background. Whereas the photograph on the right, I can work on that, I can crop it and create a stronger, more powerful image. So I hope you've taken away a couple of ideas on cropping. And don't forget, photography is all about capture and post-production. I'm Peter Eastway.
Thanks for joining us on the show today. If you want to join the Snap Happy community, head on over to our website at snaphappytv.com. There you'll find exclusive content, competitions and special offers from our partners. See you next time on Snap Happy, the photography show.